Hi, Journey. Hope you're having a great week. Wanted to come to you, and as you've probably been anticipating, I want to give you an update on where we're headed as a church, our schedule. You're seeing that more of our community, more of our state is beginning to reopen. Maybe you've been out to eat already. Julie and I went out and sat down at a restaurant over the Memorial Day weekend. It was strange because we hadn't done that in months, but more of our communities beginning to open back up. And I'm sure you've been wondering, what's the church planning? What's the direction we're going in? The leadership church, the elders and I, we've been meeting every week. We've been having a Zoom meeting every Monday evening, praying, thinking, planning, seeking God's wisdom. And through that process, we have decided on a schedule, a calendar for what's going to happen next at our church. Let me first of all say, I'm so thankful that church hasn't stopped over the last 3 months. Church hasn't ended. In-person meetings have ended, but the church hasn't ended. We've worshiped every Sunday together. It's been great seeing your comments throughout the service. You've said hi to one another, and it's different from anything we've ever done before, but we've been together. We've been worshiping together. We've been meeting on Thursday nights for a time of prayer. Miss Jennifer's been providing wonderful children's ministries throughout the week. Zach's done an unbelievable job with not only leading our worship, but also handling all of the production and technical side of things. We've still been the church. I'm grateful that we've been able to minister to some people in our community through this time. We've been able to support some of the nonprofits in our community by donating food, by donating financial resources to them. We've supported people on the other side of the world, a village in Uganda. We've helped provide food for them through this. The church has not stopped. Ministry has continued. We've continued to be the church. And much like some in the early church that got spread out because of the events of the part of the world they were living in, we've been spread out, but we've been the church wherever we are. And I am so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the financial faithfulness that our church has shown through this, the continued sacrificial giving that so many of you have engaged in. Even as we haven't been meeting in person, you have supported the ministry here, allowed us to do ministry in our area and around the world, even as we walked through this unusual time. I'm grateful for that. We unanimously approved moving forward with the bank loan for our mortgage. That's still in process right now. Hopefully we're going to wrap that up really soon as far as closing the loan, but unanimously we agreed to keep moving forward with that, even in this strange time. So all of the aspects of the church, the ministry aspect, the financial aspects, the worshiping aspects, the business aspects, all of those have continued through the time that we've been living in. And now it's time to start looking at what's next. Like, what's the next step for the future of our church? I want to take just a minute to talk to you about that because it's exciting. We've all been looking forward to this day since the middle of March when we had to cancel that very first service and move it online. Since the moment we canceled the first in-person gathering, I've been looking forward to when we could all be back together again. And now 3 months past that time almost, I've had to realize that first Sunday, those first couple of Sundays, they're not going to be exactly the way I pictured them back in the middle of March or the 1st of April. They're going to look quite a bit different from the last time we got together, and that's okay. The church is still going to be the church, and we're still going to worship. And just like God's been accomplishing things when we haven't met in person, He's going to continue to accomplish things, even though it's going to look and feel a little bit different at first. We've come up with a three-phased approach to returning to church, coming back in person to church. If you're seeing this through an email, then there's an attachment on the email with a graphic that hopefully makes clear what those phases are going to look like. If you're watching this on social media, then we're going to put that graphic in the comments for you to be able to see as well. But I felt like some of it needed just a little bit more explanation because we want you to be prepared. We want to set expectations for what that day is going to be like, so you know before you ever get here exactly what it's going to be like to come back together to worship. Let me say first of all, no one should feel any pressure to come back on the first Sunday or the second Sunday if you're not comfortable. If you feel like you need a little more time before you come back in person, that is absolutely fine. You don't need to feel obligation. You don't need to feel pressure in any way to come back in person until you are comfortable. We're going to continue through phase 1 and phase 2 with a full online worship experience, so you'll be able to see exactly what you've been watching up to this point. There'll be a full worship, teaching, online experience every Sunday in phases 1 and phases 2. When we get to phase 3, we'll probably have to go back to live streaming the message only. And it's just for practical reasons. We aren't set up to be able to live stream all of our music and our worship in the way that we can the message. So for phases 1 and phases 2, we're going to kind of do double duty. We're going to prepare the online experience, and then we're also going to have an in-person experience, but we can't do that on an ongoing basis. At some point, because our online worship experience has been so well received through the pandemic, we would like to get back to live streaming the whole service. That'll require some additional technology. That'll require some additional volunteers each week to make that happen. It certainly is our goal to provide that on an ongoing basis. We're not at that point right now. So for phases 1 and phase 2, you're going to get the full worship service online experience and then message only in phase 3. When you come back to in-person worship in phase 1, we're going to have limited seating, so we're going to ask you to register online. Let us know that you're coming. Let us know how many people are coming with you. So if one of the services begins to fill up, then we can let everybody know that service is closed, that service is full. The chairs will be spaced out all over our auditorium, and we're going to ask families to sit together. Only sit with the people who are in your family who live in your home. We'll have groups of chairs, 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. They'll be spread out at least 6 feet apart. Again, there'll be fewer of those chairs, so our seating capacity will be limited. When you come into the building, we're going to ask that you move directly to the auditorium and that you find a seat. It would be our preference that you fill up from the front of the auditorium to the back. If you come in and immediately sit in the back, then more people are going to walk past you as they're coming into the service. The better we can fill up from the front to the back, the more we can avoid unnecessary contact. Speaking of contact, when we get back together in phases 1 and phase 2, there'll be no physical contact of any kind. And I know that's difficult because we want to get back together and hug necks and shake hands. And for many of us, it's just an instinct, isn't it? You walk up to somebody and you immediately extend your hand. Or you see somebody you know, especially someone you haven't seen in a while, you immediately want to hug their neck. So this is your warning. Start practicing. Start preparing yourself to resist that urge. No physical contact at all in phases 1 and phase 2. You can wave. That's always good. You can give the finger point, either the one finger point or the ever popular two finger points. You can give a thumbs up, but no handshakes, no hugs, no physical contact. We're not going to hand anything out initially in the first probably 6 to 8 weeks. We're not going to hand you a communication card. We're not going to hand you a pen. We're not going to pass the offering baskets. There will be baskets in the back of the auditorium. As you leave, if you brought your offering with you, then you can drop those in the offering basket as you leave. Speaking of leaving, we are going to have a directed exit at the end of each service. So we'll start with the back and we'll allow 2 rows to exit at a time to give people the opportunity to get out of the building and to their cars. And we ask that you do that in the first month or 2. I know we want to hang around. I know we want to see people. We're going to ask that at the conclusion of the service, as your row is called, that you would make your way outside as quickly as possible. If you want to visit, perhaps you could do that on the outside, but we're not going to congregate in the hallways. We're also going to limit the number of people in the restroom. So there'll be someone there. We're going to limit that to about 3 people just to avoid close contact in the restrooms. If you are more comfortable wearing a mask, feel free to wear a mask to the worship services as we start back. You won't be alone. We're going to ask our volunteers who are serving on each Sunday, we're going to ask them to wear a mask. We will have sanitation stations. There'll be hand sanitizer. There will be masks. If you get here and decide you want to wear one, if you get here, realize you forgot yours, we will have masks available. That is completely up to you. That is your choice. You should feel comfortable wearing a mask if you feel like that is the best thing for you. We're going to have a limited number of volunteers. Really, only 3 groups of volunteers will be serving initially, and that's our parking team. They'll be outside. Our ushers are going to be available to assist people, and then our security team. We'll have members of our security team who will be serving. There won't be any other volunteers the first couple of weeks and maybe months of in-person gatherings. There'll be no coffee bar. We're not going to station greeters at the door because you would have to walk right by them to get into the church. And that's painful for me because that smiling face is what I love about our greeters and our coffee bar people and our guest servers. So many of our volunteers provide that warm, welcoming smile. We just feel it's best to not have those positions initially. Instead, we're going to prop the doors open. They will be propped open about 15 minutes before the service, and then they'll be closed about 5 minutes after the service starts. And prior to the ending of the service, we'll prop the outside doors open again. So you don't have to touch anything. You don't have to walk right past someone in order to enter the building or exit the building. We do ask that if you're not feeling well, if you're sick, if you're running a temperature, we ask that you would stay home. If anyone in your family is not well, then we ask that your whole family stay home and get to feeling better before you come back and worship with us. We are going to be checking the temperature of our volunteers, making sure that they're okay. If you have any sickness, any illness at all, then we ask that you stay home. We understand that it has been a long time since we've seen each other. And so we ask that you help us return slowly through this process to what we hope will be normal again. I don't know that anything will be exactly the way it used to be, but as we move closer to what normal used to look like, we're going to need your help. We're going to need your help in this process as we move back to in-person gatherings. In the initial phase, phase 1, we're not going to have any Wednesday night activities. Our youth ministry and our children's ministries are going to continue to be online. We will change some of that for phase 2 and allow our student ministry that's used to gathering through the summer, allow them to begin to gather again in phase 2. But in phase 1, to help us move slowly and to help us be able to sanitize and clean our buildings in between hosting events, we're only going to have a Sunday morning worship at 9:30 and at 11 o'clock. Now, let me say one more thing. We are gathering, beginning June 14th, we are gathering in person to worship Jesus. That's the whole purpose of us getting back together. To join our hearts together physically in the same place so that we can worship the Lord, so that we can study His Word. We're coming back together to worship Jesus. That's our focus. That's our priority. That's our whole purpose for coming back together. I understand that many of us have varying opinions about the last 3 months. We have different opinions about our political leaders. We have different opinions about doctors and scientists. We have different opinions about statistics. We're not coming back together to discuss those. You're welcome to have your opinions. You're welcome to have your preferences. You're welcome to have your ideas. You're welcome to discuss those other places. That's not why we're coming back together. We're coming back together to exalt Jesus, to glorify Him, to be in the presence of His people as we worship Him and study His Word, to be an encouragement to one another. So I'm asking you, whatever your opinions are, whatever your preferences are, whatever your ideas are, share them anywhere you like, but here. Here, we're coming together to worship Jesus. Now, as you'll see in the graphic, we've laid out a very specific 3-phase approach. But I have to confess, there is the potential that that'll get modified as we go through. As we see how things are working, as we get new information from what's happening in our state, in our community, in our nation, there's the possibility that we're going to tweak and adjust. We're going to extend. We probably won't accelerate any of these phases, but there's the very real possibility that we could extend phase 1 longer or extend phase 2 longer, or we could extend certain aspects of the phases. So I'm asking you to be flexible, asking you to be understanding. We're trying to make the best decisions we have with the limited information that we have access to. We want you to be encouraged. We want you to enjoy being together again. But we ask you, help us do this in a slow, gradual process that would be healthiest for the people of our church and our community. If you're watching this, I want to invite you at some point over the next couple of months, come worship with us. Maybe you found us online during this strange period of time. Maybe you've never been to our building before. We'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you. Watch online for as long as you're comfortable doing that, but at some point we would love to see you in person. I hope you have a great week. We'll be giving you more information leading up to that first Sunday, June 14th. We'll be making more announcements just to prepare you for what it's going to look like and what it's going to feel like. But I can't wait to be back together.